Thanks, Laura. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for this virtual book signing event for our new toolkit, Archetypes in Branding. I'm really excited to be able to walk through the toolkit with you and to give you a sneak peek behind the covers. I see my job today as a tour guide for all of you to give you a quick overview of the rich resource that we've put together to show you the many tools available within the pages of this great toolkit. What we really hoped to create in this toolkit was a rich ecosystem of material that you can take and use and go back to again and again with each new project, with each new client, and each new undertaking. So here is a shot of what the toolkit looks like. And we created this in collaboration with Margaret Hartwell, who previously worked at CDA as our brand strategy director. It's kind of unbelievable, but we've been working on this project in one form or another now for more than 5 years. It's very exciting and a little unbelievable to finally have it be birthed into the world. Almost everyone on the Chen design team over the last 5 years have had a hand in this project in one way or another. At this time, I do have to single out and give a definite shout out to Max Spector, though, our design director here at CDA, for his brilliant art direction and amazing juggling abilities and keeping the many aspects of this project moving forward and supporting my role in this undertaking as well. It's been quite the journey, and we're really excited to be able to present it to you today. So a little bit more about the cover before we get into the insides. We had a lot of fun with the cover typography and all the different design elements. We wanted to showcase the toolkit in this kind of feel of a reference book, a big tome, a big source book that you can feel like you can go back to again and again. So we wanted to have gravitas. We want it to almost feel like it's been handed down through the ages from generation to generation. So had fun playing with custom typography for the cover. We also wanted to convey a very universal approach to really establish a visual vocabulary for the toolkit that would draw on the commonality we all share as global citizens. We felt like this was important in the whole and just conveying the whole concept of archetypes as well. And then just a quick comment about subtitle. The subtitle is a toolkit for creatives and strategists, and Margaret and I came to the subtitle very deliberately. We wanted to highlight the collaboration between all players without hierarchy to capture both right and left brain usage for this tool and to appeal to the highest identity expression of those who could use this tool in their work. By that, we mean this resource is meant for everyone involved in the branding and design process. From people in the creative, quote-unquote, creative camp, traditionally creative directors, copywriters, art directors, designers, photographers, storytellers of different kinds, to people in the usually associated with strategy, entrepreneurs, business leaders, planners, marketers, development professionals, and of course clients. In our opinion, though, I mean these categories are really being broken down more and more as we kind of are working with different people in all capacities and collaboration taking on many forms on many levels. The lines are definitely blurring. So that's also very exciting for us. A little bit of a background in terms of why we felt like this was important to an important piece for us to create. Big reason for doing this was seeing and experiencing the gap that so often happens when designers are in conversation with clients. I'm sure we've all experienced this at one level or another. It's almost like we speak in two different languages. In our work with clients at CDA, we try numerous ways to bridge that language barrier so that all involved can be jointly moving forward with the same goals and purpose for whatever project we're working on. During this time, Margaret's insights and growing interest in archetypal psychology provided really the, quote, aha moment for us, that perhaps the concept of archetypes, or in other words, universal stories, could be another tool in helping bridge the designer-client gap or the creative strategist gap. Once we started researching, though, we either found material that was way too heady and way too academic, or tools that were a little, too woo-woo or too esoteric for use in our client meetings. We realized that while there were a number of tools out there for us to adapt, there didn't exist a specific tool that creatives like us could use in our interactions with our clients. Now, parenthetically, you may or may not know this. I've always nurtured Chen Design Associates as a place for invention, for making, and where craft and quality kind of rule the day. When we put ourselves into a project, it is full on. It's full on heart, mind, soul, and body. So naturally, working on archetypes and branding was no exception. There's nothing out there for us to use. Okay, why don't we create something? Why don't we design our cards and design a system for ourselves to use? So that's kind of the background, a little bit of the background behind this project. So at this point, you're probably still wanting to know, what exactly are archetypes and why archetypes? Archetypes embody the universal stories and journeys that all human beings share. For example, the story of the alchemist within the fairy tale of Rumpelstiltskin, the hero's journey in Shakespeare's Henry V. Archetypes also represent how we manifest the roles we play within those universal stories, the lessons we learn, and the paths we choose to walk. They evoke our imaginations, our dreams, and our aspirations. And here on the screen you can see a more dictionary definition of archetypes. So what does this have to do with branding and design? Well, brand archetypes can reveal how a brand shows up in the world, how it is motivated, and what triggers it. Very simply, archetypes can facilitate the understanding of a brand and why it attracts certain customers and not others. An archetypal approach to branding will help humanize the process of being in business in general, and branding in particular, by enabling greater humanity within all stakeholder relationships. So, like I said previously, in partnering to meet these various business challenges, we often have to wade through, and I'm sure you have, we often have to wade through traditional MBA speak. If we're lucky, we receive brand pyramids, we receive relevant adjectives and other brand references, we get multi-page documents on brand assets and equity, spreadsheets on data for buying patterns, market research, segmentations, lots of stuff, lots of data. Sometimes we even get a business plan. Other times we just get questions like, wait, aren't you supposed to define my brand? Isn't that why we hired you? Have you looked at our website? And sometimes we're called on to support a new brand for business, a new brand from scratch. While business plans, websites, and all these traditional marketing tools are all helpful, sometimes they can also create limitations. Our desire for certainty leads us to categorize, analyze, and box up the components of a brand. But business and brand as its essence and culture is actually an ever-changing organism within an ever-changing ecosystem that cannot be constrained. By nature, an accounting balance sheet, like how an accounting balance sheet is representative of a moment in time, so too are brand definitions, marketing plans, and demographics. By nature, these are incomplete. So, how do we capture the organic, the continuous learning, and the growing aspects of a brand? How do we create or uncover brand meaning? What constitutes real meaning in a brand is very similar to how we understand each other as human beings. How do I know what you're about? And with these challenges, it seems even more certain that archetypes could help capture what we needed. So let me dive into the toolkit a little bit more. The heart of the toolkit really is a deck of 60 cards. They're about 4.5-inch square. They're two-sided, and they're basically, once you purchase the toolkit, you'll be ready to use them. Actually, they're perforated and waiting for you to punch them out, but once you punch them out, you can start using the cards right away. So how did we go about selecting, organizing, and designing the 60 cards? First, we chose a spectrum of archetypes that we felt would be relevant and have positive impact in the world of business. We intentionally excluded ones that represented the shadow or dark aspects of humanity. For instance, we didn't see the value in promoting archetypes such as the vampire or the victim or the thief to help brands define their communications. We really wanted to have a positive approach to this. We then brought this list to life by meticulously designing a unique look and feel for each card, and you'll see them show up here on your screen. We wanted to really apply a lot of different look and feels, a lot of different typography explorations, different color palettes, different textures. Some were more photographically driven, some were more illustrative, just to get a sense of the richness of visuals that, that could convey the essence of these different archetypes. And secondly, from an organizational standpoint, from a structural standpoint, we decided to group the 60 cards into 12 different families. So there would be 5 archetypes in each family. This is with a goal to facilitate various ways of using them, which I will talk about later. So as you can see here, here are 2 different families, the caregiver family and the citizen family. So each, the cards can be used individually. They can be used by a subset of 12 fundamental archetypes, or they could be used by family. Each family has a fundamental archetype that encompasses the qualities of the entire family, as you can see here. Kind of like how a family sharing a surname might all have some common traits, but within the family, each person has a distinct personality. The families we landed on for this deck, we can show you the set of 12. The families that we've landed on are caregiver, citizen, creator, explorer, hero, innocent, jester, lover, magician, rebel, ruler, and sage. We've gone ahead and designed an icon for each family as an additional visual to reference while using the cards. So let me show you some sample cards. Each of the cards were designed from a myriad of symbols, images, metaphors, and reference points. The composed final image is intended to be as cross-cultural as possible and also as cross-gender as possible. We worked from a master table of archetypal characteristics to create representations intended to spark intuitive understanding. The cards are two-sided, reflecting the right and left hemispheres of our brains. So the intuitive, creative, sensory image side, which you see here, and the more cognitive, analytical, logical, text side on the back. This backside offers a different layer of understanding that activates our more cognitive capacities. So as you can see, each family has a specific color, and you'll see the family icon plus a complete listing of the archetypes in that family on the top. Additionally, if it's a fundamental archetype, it will have a highlighted yellow bar so that you can quickly identify those. You will also see an overview of each archetype's strengths and challenges, and along on the bottom a short description to just tell a quick story about this specific archetype. Excuse me. Here are a few more examples of cards you'll find in the deck. Here's the Maverick, and you'll see the strengths associated with the Maverick: independence, nonconformity, originality, quirkiness, fearlessness. Challenges are rebellious or unorthodox behavior with no intended outcome, unchecked hostility, and aggression. Here's the Child card. And the Child archetype being easily amused, inner toughness and resilience, positive attitude and energy, fascination with the world, openness to possibility. I won't show you all 60 cards because we'll run out of time, but I'll show you one more. Here's the Judge card. And here's the back of the Judge card for you. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about how you can use these cards. There are really a lot of different ways that we can use the cards. Even for ourselves, as we have been working with this for many years, we continue to find new uses for the cards in various situations. Today, I'm going to highlight some of the ones that we go into detail about in the book, ones that you can kind of follow, and as well as ones that you can kind of riff off of. So one way to use the cards is to have the ability to create mood boards. We all know that mood boards are very important in our conversations with clients. We intentionally designed these, again, the cards to have different elements to really be drawn into so that these can spark conversations about things like artistic style, about pacing, about typography, about usage of photography, texture. It's always so much easier to show and tell these things rather than trying to describe them with words with a client. At least we found that. We often use the cards to kick off discussions about color and style preferences when building a visual corporate identity, or when we use them specifically for for a business initiative or for a client. You'll see that across the 60 cards, we try to be as varied as possible with style so that it doesn't lock you into a certain look and feel. You can also use the cards for personal branding. Archetypes can help any individual get intentional about how one is being presented. Even a light touch application of archetypes into how you approach your social media communications, for example, can help you present yourself more intentionally and accurately. So if your archetype is more the romantic, you'll probably have a very different approach than if your archetype is a scientist, for example. Archetypes can also be helpful in aligning values and mission for any organization. Before launching any new initiative or releasing any new communications, you can also use the chosen archetypes as a quick touch point for evaluation, asking questions like, would the dreamer do or say this? Or would the creator do or say this? What would the rescuer do in this situation, and why or why not? This allows everyone to rally together around the same cause. Archetypes can also provide a new kind of shorthand. Sometimes we just don't have time. I think we all face that in this day and age. Using archetypes to empower your creative team to use their instincts in developing campaigns, developing communications and products is really helpful. So rather than trying to micromanage how brands get manifested and getting caught in minute differences, archetypes can help the whole creative team trust the outcomes by encouraging a gut check at the conceptual level. So asking questions like, how would the brand with a rebel archetype behave in this situation? So a rebel who whose strengths are key to social change, a harbinger of fresh perspectives, new outlooks, awakening, a rule breaker, someone who challenges convention by questioning the status quo, someone who pushes the envelope. If my brand embodied that archetype, how would my brand behave in various situations? There are times also when these cards can be helpful in discovering the motivations of a particular target audience. You can go through and choose the cards that best represent your market segments and place them in a circle around your brand or business archetype. You can tell the story of how each audience and stakeholder archetype is related to the brand archetype and discover their agreements, disagreements, expectations of each other, their motivations, their ways of interacting. This can be a surprising portal as the story between your audiences and your organization reveals greater understanding of your users' needs and wants. So, for example, how would a citizen target audience interact with a rebel brand? Would it expect and want something different than the seeker or idealist segment of the target audience? How would the brand story need to be shaped to reach all these different segments? Of course, the cards can also be used to discover brand personality, to identify characteristics and qualities that clarify your brand in many, many different categories. Categories such as the core brand essence, motivation for a brand, the strengths and challenges associated with the brand that we're working on, keywords associated with a brand, and also as an outflow, colors, style, mood, all those different variables. Excuse me. We run a version of this exercise in our brand workshops with clients, usually with a very simple question, like what archetype best represents your business? So how we do that is we start with all 60 cards laid out on the table, and we always encourage our clients to respond quickly based on their instinctual reactions. This is not an intellectual exercise. Really, it's more just kind of like what connects with the heart at the moment, and have them sort the deck into 4 piles ranging from most representative to least representative. And we've had to remind our clients not overthinking would definitely help this exercise. So once you have the 4 piles from most representative to least representative, we discard the least representative decks, and then what we want to do is we want to lay out all the cards from the most representative pile like this so that it can be seen as a whole. And then we start to have a discussion about what resonated most about these archetypes. Why did we pick these? What drew you to them, and how do these reflect your business? This is a great chance. This is a great opportunity to have conversation, to really listen closely for stories, for any underlying assumptions about the business and the brand, and try to get more specific about stories that clients bring up. And then we ask the participants to sort the remaining cards into a binary yes or no piles, in which each card could be considered representative of the business. So, could the creator card represent the business as a whole? Could the angel card? Could the sage? Maybe not. So then you put that into the no pile. And then we repeat the conversation again about what the new cards seem to represent. And then at this time, we lay out all the cards that were discussed and ask that the 3 most representative archetypes be chosen. One way to do this is to continue to put aside those cards that seem to be tangents until you're really left with 3. Ask the clients or stakeholders to tell a story about how each of these 3 archetypes has shown up in their brand or their business. So as the example here, for instance, they've narrowed it down to citizen, activist, and lover. So then we have more conversations just about around these 3 cards, and we try to think about really paring down to one card as kind of the lead archetype. Sometimes you'll find that you can't do that. Sometimes you'll find that you'll end up with 3 cards, and one describes this is where we started, one kind of focuses on this is where we are now, and one archetype may represent this is who we want to be. And sometimes there's no reason to shy away if you can't narrow it down to just one. Sometimes there are what are called wings, or secondary or tertiary supporting archetypes. So there's no reason to shy away from that, and I think it's when we have that, it adds layers of depth, specificity, and description that actually enriches the brand. So here then we start talking about how we might consider responding differently to a citizen/lover brand versus a citizen/activist brand. There are nuances there, definitely, but it really is a great way to have further and deeper conversations about how the brand gets expressed. So the chosen archetypes then become a guidepost for decision making, for communications integration, and supporting the values of the organization. And then it's, you can choose how you decide to roll out this understanding and this focus. It can be incorporated into brand identity guidelines, including tone and voice, in creative briefs, in design standards, in business plans, and as a framework to implement design and implement the different components that need to be built, the different visual systems, for example. So by integrating this application into business brand guidelines and business strategy, it really can help make the branding and design roadmap more human and engaging. And we feel like it really can help bridge that gap, like I've talked about before, between all the different players, so we can establish a very integrated way of moving forward. So to help you get the most out of these cards, we've also included what we think is a wealth of additional features, lots of information, resource, and reference material in the front section of the toolkit. There's 128 pages full of good, amazing stuff that you can take your hands into and go back to and reference as you learn about archetypes and as you start using the cards in different situations. Real quickly, just to walk you through the different sections. Chapter 1 gives an overview of why we think archetypes can be a powerful branding tool in this day and age. More and more people are craving a deeper sense of connection to their work and want businesses to demonstrate greater integrity and accountability. And as I've already said a few times, we believe that the creative and mindful attention to archetypes can facilitate a more authentic, holistic, and human way of being in business. Chapter 2 gives you a quick overview of the work of those who have forged this path before us, people like Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Carolyn Myss, and many, many others. Obviously, without any of their amazing and innovative work, our toolkit would be a complete impossibility. Chapter 3 dives into a deeper understanding of archetypes and its connection and relevance to what we do as visual communicators. It includes one of my favorite Marty Neumeier quotes, the brand isn't what you say it is, it's what they say it is. So archetypes can facilitate brand relationships by aligning what the brand says it is with what it does and how it is perceived and known. In Chapter 4, we provide an overview of several companies and the archetypes that are quote-unquote in play in their brands. Chipotle, for example, has been focusing on their brand story of citizen, especially with their recent short animated film titled Back to the Start that debuted earlier this year at the 2012 Grammy Awards. It's pretty cool. You can actually check it out on Vimeo by searching for Chipotle Back to Start and take a look at that. Other examples include Sterling Brand's recent refresh for Celestial Seasonings, IBM, Apple, and Volkswagen. Little business stories about the different archetypes that are in play in these various brands. The bulk of the reference section is made up of detailed, expanded descriptions of each of the 60 archetypes, so 1 page per archetype, as well as additional photography, charts, graphs, lists, items that we hope you'll find useful, as useful on your desk as it is when used during a client meeting. We envision this toolkit to be well-loved, well-used, kind of flip through, dog-eared, just referenced repeatedly. Each expanded description page comes with a relevant quote that casts light on the particular archetype from a different angle. This one from Yoda. Each of these pages also includes examples of the particular archetype as found in the real world. And this is a really crucial part of the book as well. I mean, we worked really hard to make sure that there was a good mix. These examples draw from film, literature, philosophy, science, nonprofit, as well as for-profit businesses, institutions, cultural icons. The lists here are by no means exhaustive, and you may agree with our examples, some of our examples. You may disagree with other examples that we have here, but we see all of this as part of the intention for bringing this information into the toolkit to offer food for thought and to invite further conversation, further research, and discovery and learning opportunities. And speaking of that, I mean, we definitely know that everyone learns differently, and what one person connects to may not necessarily be something the next person would understand. So you'll also find visual prompts that try to represent the concept of archetypes from various starting points. We have a series of historical images that we've used, such as the one of Amelia Earhart shown here, representing the adventurer, to just get the conversation going or get prompts started in using archetypes and understanding how archetypes are embodied in the world. JFK represents the citizen in many, many ways. We also thought that having a section devoted to the examples but grouped by families could also be something that would come in handy as you're working with archetypes in different settings. Perhaps it's a list that you need to refer to very quickly just to kind of get a sense of, you know, who else embodies this archetype. And just in case the heavily visual nature of the toolkit isn't enough to get the juices flowing, we've also included more visual prompts that juxtapose various words with similar images. These words are all pulled from the different archetypes that you see described on the bottom. Just as another way to enter the discovery process. Maybe these can be used as, you know, just some idea generators in the beginning, or just to see, kind of compare and contrast the different qualities and how they might work with visuals, how they might sit with specific visuals that you have in mind. Chapter 6 is the how to use section, which I already talked about previously, the different ways that you can use the cards. So we go into detail in this chapter about how the many different ways that you can use it, the steps to take. And then in Chapter 7, we provide you with some real-world case studies of how we've used the archetype concepts with our clients. And then just showing you the different behind-the-scenes kind of process that we went through with them in narrowing down which archetypes seem to be working for specific situations in their businesses. And then the back of the reference book rounds out with more information on further resources beyond our toolkit, references and notes that might be of interest, things that you can look up in the library or online. There's also a full index, as well as items we think designers might find interesting. Things like there's a list of typefaces that were used in the card designs. Even just that, having that as a resource, we thought might be helpful for designers as you're thinking about projects and as you're kind of contemplating, what directions to go. It's always great to have some kind of reference point. So I guess this brings us to the end of our tour through the Archetypes and Branding Toolkit, at least the part where I go on unendingly and talk and provide more of an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. But before we do that, I really just wanted to wrap up by thanking the community of friends, colleagues, all of our clients, family, everyone on the CDA staff that supported Margaret and me in the writing and designing of this toolkit. It was definitely a very long road, but we're really excited to see it go out into the world, and we can't wait to see what you all will do with it. So thank you so much, and thank you for taking this time to join me today.
Thanks, Josh. That was a great tour. I do have some kind of questions lined up. And I guess to start, I know that it's covered early in the book, but just like a real basic, like the origins of the archetypes in the book, like where those archetypes kind of were initially developed and used, like how they were developed, I guess.
Well, archetypes are, I think they've just been, a lot of, they've been inherent in just a lot of the stories that we've heard, through the years. We do go into more detail in Chapter 2 about like where the concept comes up. Definitely, Carl Jung has a lot to do with this whole concept, really developing what's now known as the collective unconscious. He talks about that as in the field of psychology. Also, Carolyn Miss has done a lot of work in her work called Sacred Contracts, where there are actual archetype cards that kind of bring these different personalities to the forefront. So there's also a great piece of work by Carol Pearson and Margaret Mark called The Hero and Outlaw, which really provides a really robust understanding of the archetype process.
And then as you all were designing the book, did it ever come up, whether the visual expressions of each of the archetypes might influence clients?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, you can't avoid that. I think at some point there's got to be some kind of, visual prompt. So, again, I think part of it was trying to be as cross-cultural as possible, and from our understanding, albeit very limited, we're going to see things from our perspective, and I know that people, different people are going to see different things and read different things into those visuals. So, we definitely don't want those visuals to be like, the end-all expression of these archetypes, but really hoping that, at least visually there's a prompt of some kind, that there's a beginning, that there's a way for people to start the conversation.
And then how do you kind of introduce this concept to clients to where it's something they'll be receptive to and open to, so maybe in the past they've been used to using personas, and some people get really kind of locked in on doing things a certain way. Like, how do you kind of introduce the concept of using the archetypes as kind of another way to approach the process?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is really understanding, and trying to get a grasp on how receptive the client is to a new way of approaching things. What we usually like to do is really, do a whole bunch of different exercises so that archetypes isn't the only thing, and it's not the one and only, kind of focal point for the brand workshop. So that this way, in talking about different aspects, like we still talk about relevant words, keywords. We talk about, sound. We oftentimes play music. We, just try to approach it from all these different standpoints, and just to say that this is another tool as part of the whole set of tools that are available for designers and for creatives to, to uncover the stories and uncover the motivations and the brand, where the brand wants to go. It definitely isn't the only thing that can do that.
And so some of the kind of specific projects that you kind of cited in Chapter 7, it looked like some of those were like a booklet or an invitation, in some of those interactions, like how did you find the cards really help drive some of those decisions, like some of those specific interactions around a specific project?
Yeah, with that one in particular, what we did with the archetypes was, I'm sorry, excuse me, where the archetypes came into play was actually describing the target audience. Because the university, this was a university client, and because they, their outreach, they obviously have to reach out to a lot of different target audiences. It was helpful to think of these specific target audiences in an archetypal kind of way, so that when you focus on talking to prospective students and parents of prospective students, for instance, maybe the hero archetype is the one that's in play. When you're talking to alumni, you're talking to donors, perhaps the sovereign archetype comes more into play. So that shapes the language, that shapes the tone of voice, it shapes maybe what kind of visuals we use, So it starts kind of helping you focus more. So in that instance, that the archetypes were really targeted towards the target audiences.
So really the archetypes could be applied and used to represent any aspect, whether it's the brand itself or the audience that you want to speak to, or even if it's if you want to kind of pare it down to even one person, like this is the person we want to talk to. It really can be applied in that many different types of ways.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's the beauty of having something like this is you can customize it, you can cater it to a very specific situation, because we know, I mean, every client situation is different, right? And so you kind of carry that out. Every designer's relationship with each client's project has its own challenges and its own set of objectives, and so to be able to use these cards, on all these different levels is really what we're hoping that people can take advantage of.
And we had one caller who was just wanting to confirm the book has all of the sections that you described that kind of helped to lay the foundation. They go through each of the archetypes, and then in the back have the actual deck of cards, correct?
Yes. The deck of cards are included. Let me make that crystal clear. And they are, right now, when you get the toolkit, there are 4 cards on a page, and what you have to do is you have to punch them out. So once you punch them out from the pages, then you'll get your deck of 60 cards.
Great. Okay. And then we had somebody who kind of joined us late, so I want to kind of address their question regarding, it says, are your cards meant to be used by the designer and the illustrator? or some other person on the team. And as you kind of talked about at the beginning, the whole point was to kind of have a book and a toolkit that was created for both the strategists, the marketers, the clients, as well as the creative professionals. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, it really is a way to kind of bring everyone together around the table.
So at this point in the conversation, I want to go ahead and we will be giving away a copy of the book to one lucky listener. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a name from the, I guess, invisible hat, as you would say. So our winner is Cindy Harris. So Cindy, I can connect with you offline. I've got your email address, so I can get your mailing address. And then additionally, we did have some questions that were very specific about the branding process, and I wanted to make sure to bring up another resource that's available through HOW, which is How Design University. We have a brand strategy development course that's excellent to kind of help teach you to be a little bit more multidisciplinary in your approach so that you can become more of an advisor in the process as opposed to just owning the creative execution. And then for any of you who would like to purchase a copy of Archetypes and Branding, we also are going to be offering a discount code for 20% off the purchase of the book, and it's available to anybody. I know we have somebody listening in from Canada, and everybody who is interested in getting a copy of the book can get it from mydesignshop.com, and the code for the discount is ARCH20, and again, that's for 20% off, and you can just type that in and at checkout, and we'll also be sure to include that in the follow-up email that you'll get. And for those who joined us late, also just a reminder that there is a recording that will be included in that follow-up email as well, and the link will be in there so that you can listen to the full presentation if you missed anything. So with that, I just wanted to thank you, Josh, for joining us today. It was really great to kind of get your insights into the book and how it can be used. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Okay.